Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Hudak Queen 94. Not even a month into the season, and this season is becoming more entertaining than I think it was last season. Week 3 had some big major headlines. Obviously, if you're a Taylor Swift fan, you must have been losing your mind at the thought of her at that Chiefs game. Fortunately and thankfully, I am not. Shocking, I know. But I'll move on to something that's actually football related and something that's actually worth talking about and mentioning. Just kidding. But seriously. I mean, talk about the Miami Dolphins having an almost near perfect game. Now, I know you're probably thinking, what's not perfect about 70 points, 7 touchdowns, over 700 yards of total offense? The record. I mean, don't tell me they didn't go for the field goal because of sportsmanship. In this league, please. Turning down a field goal to have the most points in an NFL game at 73, just so you don't embarrass the team you basically manhandled for 60 minutes, is just a lame move. I don't agree with Mike McDaniel's explanation of this either. I mean, yes, eventually records are meant to be broken. But something like this that hasn't been done since 1966, I mean, I just don't think it's likely to be done again. So, I'm thinking, if I'm a player, I would have been hella mad because, I'm thinking, man, I could have been part of history. As a fan, I watch football to see something extraordinary. And granted, yes, what the Dolphins did was extraordinary. But the record, that could have been something that people talk about, for decades to come. Either way, on the flip side, I like Russell Wilson. I don't have anything against Russell Wilson. And I don't believe that loss was entirely on him. But Sean Payton, man. I never thought I would see Sean being on the receiving end of a brutal loss like that. Not since he outcoached the Colts on one Sunday night football game back in 2011, where we single-handedly destroyed a team 62-7. I mean, those were the days, if you were a Saints fan back then. Either way, and somewhat more important news, every NFC South team lost, but I only root for the black and gold, so let's talk Saints and Packers. Alright, so in the first quarter, Carr is taken down on third down on our opening drive. At 6:44, Saints would go downfield, and on 3rd and 5, Carr would throw a touchdown pass to my man, Jimmy Graham, for 8 yards to make it a 7-0 game. I mean, finally, am I right? Other than that, nothing to really report on. Second quarter, Carr would get sacked again at the beginning of the second quarter, forcing the Saints to punt once again. Shaheed would get the ball for a return of 76 yards for the touchdown, making it a 14-0 game. Saints would allow the Packers to have a long drive, but it ends in a Jordan Love sack to force the punt. Chris Olave would then make a one-handed grab to put us in the red zone with 31 seconds left. Groupie would kick from 25 yards to make it a 17-0 game to end the half. Third quarter, Love is intercepted by Lonnie Johnson. Carr is sacked on 3rd and 9, and this would prove to be costly as he would be taken in the locker room and ruled out for the rest of the game. Jameis Winston would step in place of Derek Carr. Love would throw a 30-yard pass to Dobbs to keep the drive alive. It would still be a 17-0 game to end the third quarter. Fourth quarter, the Packers would go for it on 4th and 2 and turn it over on downs. After another Saints failed drive, Packers would go downfield and would kick a 38-yard field goal to make it a 3-17 game. Winston would complete a pass to Thomas with 10:50 to go. Taysom would then get a 14-yard run to keep the drive alive, but a holding penalty would erase the gain. Winston would then get sacked on the very next play. The Saints would be forced to give the ball back. Jordan Love would go deep for Wicks, but it would be incomplete. However, a Saints PI would put the ball in Saints territory. The Saints would then get another flag to put the Packers in the red zone. Love would take in the ball for the 1-yard touchdown with 6:59 left to go. The Packers would go for 2 and then make the conversion to make it a 17-11 game. Jordan Love would pick up the first down and then some to keep the drive alive. Love would complete a pass to Reed for 30 yards. Love would throw the 8-yard touchdown to Dobbs to make it a 17-17 game, and the PAT would then make it a 17-18 lead. Saints would go downfield. Groupie would attempt a 46-yard field goal to take the lead, but would miss. Packers would beat the Saints 18-17. Man, oh man, was that a mouthful. Oh my goodness gracious, let me just grab my inhaler. Obviously, we have so much to address in this video, but I think before we get into the most important thing, I would like to take a moment to congratulate the Green Bay Packers on this win. After rewatching the highlights, the Saints single-handedly gave this game to the Packers, and the Packers took full advantage of that with every opportunity we gave them. I mean, because if you look at the highlights, the Packers didn't even play that great. We shut them out for 3 quarters, but the Saints got sloppy, and the Packers saw it, and they ran with it. I mean, don't tell me that that was not a gutsy and ballsy call by Matt LaFleur to go for 2 to take the lead. I'm sorry, not take the lead, but make it to where, you know, if they scored again, they would take the lead instead of tying it, right? Throughout the entire 4th quarter, the Packers stayed composed and did what they needed to do, and as angry as I am with the Saints, I can't hate on a team that took their chances. You know, Jordan Love is good. I don't think he's nearly as great as the media is making him out to be, but, you know, he'll grow. You know, he's young. So, but either way, the Saints, if you think about it, the Saints could have easily won this game had the thing that we're going to talk about didn't happen. But that said, it doesn't really matter because the Packers still found a way to win. So congratulations to the Packers moving forward. This is not a team I hate. Obviously, I've mentioned that I do like this team. I mentioned that I like Aaron Jones quite a bit. So good luck in your division. Who knows? If the Saints can get it together and the Lions don't run away with this division, who knows? Maybe we'll see each other. Who knows? Either way. Now, let's talk about Derek Carr and how everything just seemed to fall apart after his injury. Because everything absolutely fell out of line, no one was in sync, and there was no rhythm after that. So I think that should tell you a lot about who this team sees as their leader and who our guys are willing to rally around. So I am so surprised that there was no fight left once Carr left and was taken into the locker room. You can blame it on a lot of people, but for me, I don't think anyone deserves more blame than the offensive line, who again, for a 3rd consecutive game, failed to do their job. I would fine every single one of them for allowing that to happen to Carr. Doug Moreau should have been fired on the spot, no questions asked. It has been 3 consecutive games. How can you establish anything if, you know, you're constantly being sacked? How can you sustain a drive if your quarterback is constantly being sacked? And we saw that with Winston as well. So, I mean, how can you establish a run in that as well if, you know, the defenders are finding holes and weak spots in the offense? So, I feel like these guys are just standing there. They're not doing anything. They're not helping. They're not blocking. You know, once Carr was gone, this game just fell completely flat. Couldn't run. The play calling for Winston was soft. And it's crazy because he had 2 yards less than Derek Carr did. He threw for 101 yards, whereas Carr threw for 103 yards. So I can't completely fault Winston for the calls he was given on the field. He was told to play it safe, and we played it a little too safe, I feel. Where, you know, we allowed Green Bay to come back and score 18 in the final, 11 minutes? So Winston had some good throws, and he had some bad throws. I think that that's typical Jameis Winston right there. No run to really speak of, major inconsistencies, just a complete turnaround in the second half. And the Saints went backwards on offense as much as they went backwards on defense. You know, we were also very inconsistent on defense. Alontae Taylor went from balling out to having a really good game to getting really stupid penalties. So the defense would come up with these great stops, and then on the very next play would allow something big or epic to happen. Very inconsistent on both ends. So, you know, and explain to me how you go from shutting a team out for 3 quarters, getting some turnovers, and then allowing 18 points, plus the 2-point conversion. You know, and if you think about it, the offense did not have any turnovers. They didn't score anymore. But that defense, they allowed Green Bay to score off terrible penalties, which, again, seems to be a theme with this team. The defense completely choked in important key moments. It just wasn't good enough. Then it comes down to our final drive. We didn't get groupie close enough. And it was a very similar kick to the one he had in preseason, where he had the distance, but he didn't have the angle. He lacked the angle. So I do feel bad for him. He's young, but I don't really know exactly what I'm supposed to say about him right now, especially when we kept him over Lutz. Now, I don't want to say that we bet on the wrong horse. I don't want to jump the gun here. But, we'll see how Groupie does in these next games, how he'll bounce back. But it was not entirely on him. Just the Saints should have never allowed Green Bay to score 18 on them. The Saints completely failed in this game, and that's why this is a pretty upsetting loss, in my honest opinion. With that, let's move on to Tampa Bay. Another morning game. Oh my goodness, how I dread those so much. Either way, this game is in New Orleans, so that is a plus. So now, what do I know about Baker Mayfield? Well, honestly, hopefully a lot. I've followed him since his college days, and I thought he was really, really good in college. I did enjoy watching him then, and honestly, I think he got the raw end of the deal in Cleveland. He won them a playoff game, went to Carolina, didn't do much there, and then ended up on the Bucs, which for me is unfortunate. You would think now that Brady is gone, I despise the Bucs, a little less than I do. Turns out, I actually don't. Brady may be gone, thank gosh. Took a while, but the Bucs still have most of their players. So, Bucs started out 2-0 and played horrible on Monday Night Football against the Eagles, and the Bucs' 2 wins did come against 2 0-3 teams. Now listen, I don't know what that means to anybody. I'm just pointing it out. So, we did play Baker last year in a game that we lost when he was with the Panthers, and his numbers weren't stellar, and they've yet to be stellar this season as well. I think depending on which Baker we see in this game is going to tell us all we need to know, and it's going to tell us, how our defense can stack up against him. And that, again, should tell us what we need to know. We also get to see one of the greatest rivalries on turf, honestly. No love lost, that super bad bromance between Mike Evans and Marshawn Lattimore. I mean, who's done very well at breaking up passes along with Alontae Taylor this season. So how could you not want to see that Evans and Lattimore matchup? Because Lattimore always seems to get the better of Evans. He always has found a way to really push Evans over the edge to where Evans says, I don't even care anymore. I don't even care if I punch this dude out and, I'm fined and they kick me out of this game. They just love going at it. And, you kind of love to see it in a way, as long as it's not too violent. But other than that, that's kind of what football rivalries are about. It is a shame that C.J. Gardner-Johnson won't be a part of this game. But either way, we get to see, again, one of the coolest matchups, I think, in the league so far. That said, they do have Chris Godwin, who I honestly think is a good receiver. Nothing against him, never had hate for him. Despite the loss that we just covered, the Saints still contain the run. So I don't know how much of a threat I see in Rachaad White being. So if the defense can bounce back from last week and not allow the Bucs to score off penalties, and I cannot stress that enough, and can contain the run and get good reads off Mayfield and shut down Evans and Godwin, I think we'll be fine. That said, what I am more concerned about is the offense. I trust our defense enough despite their collapse last week, but the offense is what, has me thinking quite a bit. So let's talk about it. So, Winston, the name many fans wanted last season. And I will admit that I was sort of on the if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality when it came to Dalton over Winston. I did see that as sort of a business decision to keep Winston benched by Dennis Allen. So, that said, we did see a little bit of Winston last week, though I can't really blame that loss on him as much as I can blame it on play calling. I think that Coach Allen and Pete Carmichael thought that game was wrapped up and that all we needed to do was eat clock. But as you can clearly see, that's not necessarily the case. Either way, I can't really judge Winston solely based on last week because he didn't play a full game. And he had just as much passing yards that Carr did. Not to mention, he didn't even have an interception. It was just an unlucky situation or circumstance that he was thrown into. So I need to see Winston play a full game, fully healthy, to really get an idea of how I feel about him. You know, Winston is playing against his former team, and I'm sure that that means something to him. And we have Taysom in the lineup who can help if needed. And yes, as happy as I am to say this, we are getting Kamara back. I don't know how you guys feel, but I am super excited to be getting Kamara back. Trust me, I think he is going to ignite this running game. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, Kamara is going to come back and he's going to ball out and get 150 yards rushing, right? I mean, it could happen. I'm holding my breath on that idea, but I think his presence is going to ignite something in Miller to where he can have a more productive game, I guess you can say. At least I'm hopeful for that outcome. Going back to Winston, I don't know what rapport he's going to have with our receivers. You know, Carr had started to develop relationships with almost every single one of our guys minus Juwan Johnson. But he finally got Jimmy Graham involved, so super excited about that. So I don't know what that's going to look like for Winston. But Winston did complete a pass to Juwan. So I don't know, maybe Juwan might be that guy that Winston goes to. I don't know who his favorite targets are going to be. But I'm hopeful that we'll get the passing game going because Winston has the arm. That's not what's in question. What's in question is his accuracy. So I think if he can get that cleaned up and that fixed up, then I think we should be okay. So as far as this game goes, I think this will be a tight, low-scoring game. I can't see either team getting more than 24 points. I could be wrong, but that's my bold prediction. The Saints are 3-point favorites at home, so I believe that this is a winnable game if this team doesn't turn the ball over, get those stupid penalties that favor the other team. Either way, listen, if the Saints don't get in their own way, and I think this is said about every single game, the Saints can easily win all of their games if they don't get in their own way. But if the Saints are more composed and do their job as they're supposed to, then I think that the Saints will be fine with Winston. That's my prediction. As for Derek Carr, I absolutely hate how this went down. My heart completely broke for Derek Carr, and I'm so grateful that this is not a season-ending injury, and I'm hopeful that we'll get a chance to see Carr soon, even though his timetable is very unspecified at the moment. But I think that the way that the fans have sort of rallied behind him or rallied around him, you can tell that a lot of Saints fans really believe in Derek Carr. And though it was not necessarily perfect, it was starting to look really good. As I mentioned, he had rapport with almost every single one of our receivers. And I would have liked to have seen how he worked with Kamara. Unfortunately, we won't get to see that anytime soon. So all I can say is get well soon, Carr. You know, we miss you, we're thinking about you, and we're all rooting for you. So get well, and I can't wait to see you again. Those are my thoughts on the game. Once again, my name is HudatQueen94. I'm also on Twitter under the name Jamie Graham Superstar. So yeah, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If not, that's okay. I totally understand. If you'd like to subscribe, I'd greatly appreciate it. Just hit that button down below. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and go Saints. Who dat, baby? Okay, bye-bye.